Ryland is jolted awake from a medically induced coma aboard a spacecraft. The ship's AI, Mary, tries to calm him down with a few questions, but Ryland remembers nothing. Not who he is, not where he is, not anything. Gripped by fear, he tears himself away from the robotic arm trying to help him and frantically searches the ship for another human being. When he finally finds someone, his heart sinks. They're dead. He's completely alone. Wandering further, he stumbles upon a window, and the terrifying truth stares back at him. He's in space. As he moves through the ship, he notices he can identify the equipment around him, which tells him he must be a scientist. He finds a room filled with giant screens showing breathtaking footage of Earth, beautiful, yet painfully far away. After changing clothes, Mary suggests he record a video diary, but Ryland brushes that off and asks for the captain. Mary delivers the crushing news. He is the only survivor. He demands to be taken home, but Mary doesn't recognize the command. Spotting what looks like the sun on a screen, he tries to send a message to Earth, only to be told it would take nearly 12 years to arrive. Looking more carefully at the map, he realizes it isn't even the same sun. After checking the fuel levels and doing the calculations, the horrifying answer stares back at him. He is 113.8 years from Earth. Then a sharp headache strikes and memories begin bleeding back. He was a molecular biologist and a middle school teacher who had followed the news about the Petrova line, a strange phenomenon slowly dimming the sun. Scientists warned that within 30 years, Earth would begin to freeze, threatening all life. He had reassured his frightened students that the world's best minds were working on a fix. Back in the present, Ryland finds vodka and drinks himself through the loneliness. He goes through his dead crewmates' belongings, remembering them as friends. He even makes a doll from their clothes and dances with it, just to feel less alone. While scribbling notes on a whiteboard to piece his identity back together, another memory surfaces. A woman named Eva, who led the Petrova research team, had once tracked him down after reading his bold theory that life doesn't need water to exist. Ryland reminded her he'd been fired for writing it, but Eva knew the real reason. He had clashed with a superior and burned his bridges. Still, she had followed him and revealed something remarkable. Samples from the Petrova line had survived on the sun's surface. His theory might not be so crazy after all. With the sun confirmed to be dying, Ryland had no choice. He agreed to help. With world leaders watching closely, Ryland got to work testing the mysterious samples in a high-security lab. The samples could move on their own, which was strange, but movement alone didn't prove life. They were also completely dark, making it impossible to see inside them. Ryland tried method after method until he finally cracked it, finding a way to make them transparent. What he saw confirmed it. They were tiny alien cells. The process destroyed one of them, but now he could study what they were made of. The results floored him. The cells were mostly made of water, directly disproving his own theory. He hurled things across the room in frustration. But as his anger settled, something else emerged. The cells were absorbing solar energy and releasing infrared light as they moved, and that light matched the exact frequency of the Petrova line. That was the connection. Eva told him his work was done, but Ryland refused to walk away. He was too invested now. She agreed to let him take 3 cells home for further testing. One question gnawed at him. Why had the cells gone to Venus and skipped Mercury entirely? He had a theory. He bought supplies from a hardware store and built a clever experiment, a large box containing a smaller one that mimicked Venus's atmosphere by emitting the same infrared light. If the cells moved toward it, they needed carbon dioxide. The moment he switched the light on, the cells vanished from the dish. Confirmed, but now they were loose inside the box. Opening it in a lit room would send them flying toward any light source, so Ryland sealed himself inside the lab, killed every light, and opened the box in complete darkness. Using their faint glow to track them, he located his 3 cells, and then froze. There was a 4th one. The cells had reproduced, and they needed both sunlight and carbon dioxide to do it. Venus had both. Mystery solved. He called Eva straight away. The military whisked him away on a jet, and the speed was so overwhelming that Ryland had to be sedated. He woke up on an aircraft carrier. Eva was waiting with a room full of the world's top scientists and leaders. though Ryland struggled to keep up with their questions. The team had repeated his experiment with identical results. They named the organism astrophage and declared they needed to produce 2 million kilos of it. When Ryland asked why so much, Eva gave him full access to Project Hail Mary, and the truth was staggering. Stars across the entire universe were dying from astrophage, all except one, Tau Ceti, 11.9 light-years away. A spacecraft would be sent there to find out why it was immune. The astrophage would power the trip, but even that much fuel only covered a one-way journey. 3 astronauts would go, a pilot, an engineer, and a scientist, spending most of the trip in a coma, never returning home. The odds were brutal. That's why they called it a Hail Mary. With all his memories restored, Ryland quietly cuts his hair and gets dressed. He returns to his crewmates one last time, overcome with grief. He cleans them up, places their photographs in their pockets, and delivers a tearful speech honoring their sacrifice. Then, with a heavy heart, he ejects their bodies into space. As the ship nears Tau Ceti, the engines go silent and gravity disappears. Floating to the window, Ryland spots a Petrova line here too, yet this sun looks completely healthy. Before he can process that, something else catches his eye. Another spacecraft right outside. When it drifts too close, he nervously steers away, but it follows him everywhere. It eventually launches an object toward his ship. Fearing a weapon, he lets it bounce off. When a second object arrives slower and gentler, he suits up and floats outside to catch it. After a clumsy struggle, he grabs it just in time. Back inside, he can't figure out how to open it. A scan shows it's made of xenon, which makes no sense. He activates the ship's centrifuge system to restore gravity, then tries again. This time it opens, revealing a strange sphere with lines and a smaller sphere with rods inside. A map. The alien is telling him where it came from. Ryland rearranges the rods to mark Earth's location and sends it back. The alien responds with a tunnel-shaped object, an invitation. Ryland brings his ship close, and the 2 spacecraft are connected by a tunnel built on the spot. He suits up and carefully crosses over, peering through the window on the other side. Something moves behind the glass and startles him so badly, he nearly loses his grip on the tunnel wall. He steadies himself, looks again, and sees an alien hand. The creature shows him tiny models it had made, a little Ryland and a replica of his ship, and gestures for him to return to his spacecraft. Once Ryland is back, the alien spins its ship to match the Hail Mary's rotation, restoring gravity in the tunnel. Ryland crosses again, this time stringing up lights along the way, and holds up a model of the alien ship he had built from noodles. The alien steps closer, and Ryland gets his first real look. It resembles a walking rock. When Ryland says hi, the alien opens its mouth and lets out a terrifying sound, sending Ryland stumbling back in shock, waving a tool in self-defense. The alien recoils in fear. Ryland catches his breath and apologizes. What follows is almost comical. The alien begins mimicking his every move, and soon they're both pulling silly poses at each other through the glass. Then the alien starts tapping the window and pointing behind Ryland. It had left him another message. Inside, Ryland finds a strange collar made of 2 rings of 8. He stares at it, puzzling it out, and then it clicks. 2 rings of 8. That's oxygen. The alien is telling him the tunnel has breathable air. Ryland hesitated, staring at the collar in his hands. The alien, whom he had now decided to call Rocky, was telling him the tunnel had oxygen. It was a risk, but after a long moment, he reached up and took off his helmet. He breathed in slowly. It was fine. He could breathe perfectly. A wave of relief and wonder washed over him. Back on his ship, Ryland studied the first object Rocky had sent him and realized it represented the Petrova line. Rocky wasn't just passing by. Its home star was dying too. They were both here for the same reason. Ryland returned to the tunnel and made his intention clear they should work together. But first, they needed a way to talk to each other. Ryland figured math was the one universal language, so he started simple. He showed Rocky a measuring tape. Rocky took it and just played with it like a toy. He tried a clock next. No reaction. Then it hit him. Rocky's ship was dark inside, and the creature had no visible face. Ryland theorized Rocky was blind and used echolocation to sense the world. He went back to his ship and modified the clock so the numbers physically popped out. When he showed it to Rocky again, something clicked. Rocky could feel the numbers and broke into a little celebration dance. Ryland tried to teach Rocky a thumbs up, But Rocky's arm could only manage a thumbs down. Then Rocky disappeared and returned with its own device, rotating parts covered in symbols. It was a clock of its own. They were finally on the same page. From that point on, Ryland set up a microphone and laptop in the tunnel and spent hours pointing at objects while Rocky named them, slowly building a translator for Rocky's strange language. He cataloged everything, hoping to eventually send it all back to Earth. He even discovered that Rocky built its tools from an unknown material, which he decided to name xenonite. One day, Ryland showed Rocky the astrophage. Rocky recognized it instantly and called it very bad, confirmation they were absolutely here for the same reason. Then Rocky said something that stopped Ryland in his tracks. It said it was glad not to be alone anymore. Its crew had all died, just like Ryland's. In that quiet moment, two beings from completely different worlds made a simple but powerful promise. They would save the stars together. Ryland taught Rocky how to fist bump to seal the deal. As their friendship deepened, they shared data, tested voice settings until Rocky found one it liked, and worked side by side. When Ryland left one night to sleep, Rocky misunderstood and thought he had died. Ryland explained what sleep was, and Rocky translated it into its own language, sharing that in its culture they sleep together in groups for protection. It wanted to sleep beside Ryland too. Ryland thought it was odd, until Rocky quietly mentioned it had watched its own crew sleep one day and they never woke up. That was enough. Ryland set up a makeshift bed by the tunnel window, and they both drifted off side by side. A flashback surfaced, Eva introducing Ryland to the three astronauts chosen for the mission. They had asked for a way to end their lives after completing it, unwilling to die slowly of starvation. Ryland also demonstrated how the astrophage-powered engine worked, melting through a ton of metal in seconds. Back in the present, Rocky had made its way onto Ryland's ship using a small pressurized bubble as a personal suit. It wandered around admiring everything, and immediately scolded Ryland for being messy. Despite Ryland's protests about keeping their work separate, Rocky claimed its own space and moved in. Living together was an adjustment. Rocky was bossy, watched Ryland constantly with its incredible hearing and ability to see through walls, and eating in front of it was a deeply unpleasant experience. But working together paid off. Ryland realized these aliens knew nothing about radiation, and that Rocky had survived because its workshop had been shielded by the astrophage itself. They decided to collect astrophage samples from a nearby planet. The journey took 11 days, during which Ryland showed Rocky recordings of Earth. Rocky opened up too, sharing that it missed its mate, a companion it had been with for 186 years. When they arrived, Ryland was speechless at the planet's colors. During a spacewalk, he activated a light that drew thousands of astrophage, creating a breathtaking glow. They named the planet Adrian. Testing the samples back on the ship led to a stunning discovery. The same amount of astrophage that arrived at Adrian also left it. That made no sense if they were going there to reproduce. Further testing revealed bacteria mixed in with the astrophage, meaning there was life on Adrian. Something there was hunting and killing the astrophage like a predator, keeping its numbers in check and preventing it from overwhelming their sons. If they could capture these bacterial predators and bring them home, they could save both their worlds. The predators were likely in the clouds where the astrophage reproduced, but neither ship was designed to enter the atmosphere. Rocky offered a solution. It could build a chain long enough to fish for the bacteria from above. Ryland practiced flying the ship close to the atmosphere to avoid disaster, while Rocky recorded messages he thought were being broadcast live to its home planet. Ryland gently explained that everything would be sent back via probe later. And then Rocky asked why Ryland couldn't just explain it himself when he returned home. When Ryland admitted he wouldn't be going home, that he would die out here, Rocky refused to accept it. Without hesitation, it offered to share its own fuel with Ryland, enough to get him home, even if it slowed Rocky's own journey considerably. Ryland was overwhelmed. He hugged Rocky's bubble and wept. With renewed purpose, Ryland carefully piloted the ship as close to Adrian's atmosphere as he dared and lowered the chain, a probe at its end, into the clouds below, fishing for the tiny creatures that might just save two worlds. Once the probe finished collecting samples, Ryland headed outside to retrieve it. It was slow, painstaking work, and the ship was already taking heat damage from the atmosphere while it waited. Then, without warning, a piece of metal broke loose and struck him, knocking him unconscious. He came around quickly, only to find the probe dangling beneath the ship on its chain. The temperature kept climbing, and Rocky urged him to come back inside and try again later. Ryland wouldn't hear it. He lunged for the probe, got struck by another loose fragment, and found himself tangled in the tether. With no other option, he cut himself free with a knife, grabbed the hull with his bare hands, and hauled himself back inside. The ship fled from Adrian, but the damage was done. The hull was breaking apart and an explosion felt close. Ryland pushed the engines to their absolute limit. Once they were far enough from the planet, he cut the engines, but the ship kept moving, spiraling into an uncontrollable spin. A hole in the fuel tank was draining 2 containers. He fought through the shaking and managed to eject them both. The spinning stopped, but the sudden jolt knocked them both out. Ryland came to briefly, reached for the gravity controls, and passed out again. Rocky woke up to find its translator broken and Ryland unresponsive. Without hesitating, Rocky crawled out of its protective bubble, something deeply painful for it, and manually stabilized the ship. Then it carried Ryland to the medical bay before collapsing from the effort. While the ship's robots tended to Ryland, a flashback filled in a missing piece. The earlier lab explosion had killed the mission's scientist astronaut and his backup. With no time to train a replacement, Eva turned to Ryland. He refused. The argument turned bitter, Eva coldly pointing out he had no family, no friends, not even a pet. She gave him 3 hours to reconsider. He said no. So she had her guards chase him down, tackle him, and sedate him. Ryland hadn't volunteered for this mission. He had been put on that ship by force. Back in the present, Ryland followed a trail of what looked like Rocky's blood across the floor and found his friend back inside its bubble, sleeping and slowly recovering. He sat quietly beside it, just like they used to sleep together by the window. When Rocky finally woke up, it had left Ryland a message on the computer, asking him to save their homes. Ryland got to work immediately. He confirmed the bacteria collected from Adrian's clouds could eat astrophage and named them Talmiba. He cultivated them inside xenonite containers, carefully mutating them to survive the conditions of Venus's atmosphere. Days passed, and Rocky slept on, not waking. Ryland talked to it constantly, hanging cheerful drawings on its bubble to keep his own hope alive as much as anything else. Then one day, a noise startled him awake, and Rocky was standing there, fully recovered. Ryland threw his arms around it. Together they looked over the Talmeba farm, thriving and plentiful. They could go home. They celebrated with fireworks clips, paper hats, and Rocky dressing its limbs in xenonite like formal wear. Ryland gave Rocky a laptop loaded with human knowledge and a stress ball as a keepsake. Rocky felt bad having nothing to offer in return, so Ryland asked for a tour of its ship. Wearing a xenonite suit, he crossed over and marveled at the alien technology inside. With repairs done, it was finally time to say goodbye. Their farewell in the tunnel was tender and silly, emotional and full of the ridiculous gestures that had become their friendship. Then the ships separated and drifted in opposite directions, and Ryland was alone again. Minutes later, Mary detected contamination. The Talmiba had broken through its xenonite container. Ryland quickly moved everything into a sealed box, but his mind immediately went to Rocky. Rocky's entire ship was built from xenonite. If the Talmiba escaped and reached it, it would devour the fuel and leave Rocky stranded forever. Ryland ran the numbers. He could save Rocky, or he could get home. He couldn't do both. He didn't hesitate. He loaded all his research and the bacteria farm into probes and fired them toward Earth, just as the mission had always planned. Then he turned the ship around. Days later, he found Rocky's ship and pounded on the window until his friend appeared. Rocky let him in. Far in the future, the probes reached Earth. Eva watched the recordings and saw Rocky for the first time. The planet was already beginning to freeze, but now they had what they needed to fight back. Rocky's world, meanwhile, had already been saved, and Ryland had built a life there. He had learned the alien language fluently and no longer needed the translator. One day, Rocky told him a spacecraft had been built to take him back to Earth. Ryland thought about it and chose to stay, taking up work as a teacher for a classroom full of small, Rocky alien children. Thanks for watching, and subscribe for more recaps.